One of the most powerful speeches in D.C. on Saturday came from an 11-year-old girl with an important message.
I am here today to acknowledge and represent the African-American girls whose stories don't make the front page of every national newspaper. For far too long, these names, these black girls and women, have been just numbers. I'm here to say never again for those girls too.
It was a point echoed by others, including Trevon Bosley and Edna Chavez, both of whose brothers were shot and killed, one while leaving church in Chicago, the other just outside his home in South L.A.
It is normal to see flowers honoring the lives of black and brown youth that have lost their lives to a bullet. How can we cope with it when our school district has its own police department? Instead of making black and brown students feel safe, they continue to profile and criminalize us.
It's time for the nation to realize gun violence is more than just a Chicago problem or a Parkland problem, but it's an American problem.
But is it a problem America will ever be able to solve? I'm joined now by a group who thinks the answer is yes. Three of the organizers have March for Our Lives in Boston. Vikiana Petit-Homme, how'd I do?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, thank you. She's a junior at Boston Latin Academy. Laura-Luiza Gouvea, who's back. Nice to see you again, a sophomore at Somerville High. Charlotte Lowell, that one I got right, a senior at Andover High. Nice to see all three of you. Just quickly, what's your reaction to what Livy had to say there?
I think what we did on Saturday was to practice our First Amendment rights, and she's allowed to do that too. We just don't agree with her.
If she were at your school, is there a kid who has her perspective at your school?
I think there.
Sorry, no. Are there at your school?
I think there certainly are, and you know they have every right to believe the things that they say. But we believe that gun violence isn't an issue that students should face.
But she basically said, I thought quite calmly, that she didn't use this word. She felt ostracized. She was almost treated like she said, like I'm a killer. How would she be treated at your high school?
I think that everyone has a certain set of opinions, and everyone will do their best to defend those opinions to the best of their ability. Mm-hmm. Do I think she would be applauded? Do I think that people would just stay silent and listen to her? No, but I don't think ostracized would be the word that I would use.
Let's get back to what you all did. How would you rate the success of Saturday? Look at the smile on your face.
Well, I think it was amazing. I think it was empowering. It was incredible. It was a moment that students across the state could be a part of to show, our voices matter. Listen to us.
The Parkland kids went out of their way. They went to Chicago because they were concerned about diversity and inclusivity. I was broadcasting on the radio from the Boston Public Library, so I didn't get to see. Were you guys able to pull off the same sort of diversity on that stage that they were able to do in Washington?
Oh, yes. I think so. I think we did a good job with that.
And what's the message in that? What were you trying to say?
That it's an everybody problem, that this has been a problem for a really long time, and I think we all they did a fantastic job of touching base on that on Saturday.
You're pointing to these two women?
Yes, they were phenomenal speakers on Saturday, and we were just really trying to push the fact that this has been a problem for a really long time, that communities of color have been bringing up multiple times, and they weren't heard, and we've been giving this phenomenal platform that we can say something about.
You're nodding in agreement. You think that point was made?
Definitely. From the very beginning, we set aside time to make sure that we spoke to the people of color, to make sure that we spoke with the people who are most affected by gun violence. And I think we did a good job at following that through the end and through the speakers.
I assume you've heard on television, or maybe even closer to home, the criticism, you're all pawns. You're not smart enough, you're not sophisticated enough, you're not organizationally skillful enough. It's a bunch of adults who have this agenda, and you are basically following their orders. What do you say to those people?
That is completely false. We were involved in every single decision that led up to that march. We wrote our own speeches. We organized every aspect. We are the spokespeople. We are the organizers, and we were the ones who led the march completely 100%.
Yeah, Vikiana worked for hours and hours to plan out everything from how many porta potties we had to
the most important thing.
Yeah, honestly, it was a big deal. But to how many speakers, to what the messaging was, every single thing students were involved in.
And I think the adults that worked with us also did a fantastic job of letting us be at the front lines of this whole thing, and they were just purely there as support. If they 18 over papers, they were there to sign, but in our name, because this was the work that we were doing together.
Did you guys think you could do this? I mean, sincerely. I mean, this was massive. This was not in Boston. It was massive. Nationally, internationally, it was massive. Tell the truth. When this was conceptualized, I mean, Parkland only happened on Valentine's Day, like 6+ weeks ago. When this was in your head, in your collective heads, did you think you could pull off something like this? Honestly, Why did you think that? It hasn't been done before on guns.
I think growing up in Boston, you're kind of, or like around Boston, you're kind of privileged in a way that youth have more of a say, I think, in what goes on in our city. And that's one of our privileges. And I've been privileged enough to grow up with people who support me 100% and have told me that I can do whatever I want.
She'll be all right.
So I thought, going into this, and the people that were working with me and the supporters, I absolutely 100% thought we could
Charlotte,
do it.
what happens next? I mean, is someone who did a little organizing, not nearly as successful as you guys when I was younger. One of the big things, when you have a huge moment like you did, are you okay? Okay. Drink water. When you have a huge moment like this, the issue is, okay, what's next? It was sort of like the Women's March after Donald Trump was elected. Yeah. Okay, that was fabulous. What's the next act? What is the next act? Expectations are so colossally high because you were so successful. What do you do next?
And we really were so successful. I think the next step is registering as many people to vote. We're taking it straight to the midterms. We're going to make sure that if politicians believe that guns are more important than children, we're going to vote them out. So many kids are going to turn 18 by the 2018 midterms, and we're going to vote.
Do you have staying power? I don't mean you, because you can't breathe so much. But, you know, we discussed this last time you were here. Most of Congress was home. Very few Republicans, who are the primary opponents, had anything to say about this except a moronic comment by a former Senator, Rick Santorum, about how the Parkland kids should be learning CPR rather than not understanding, I guess, what happened to them. But if Congress does nothing, is there the staying power? School's over in June. You go off to your jobs or whatever you do during the summer. Is there staying power in this movement?
Oh, yeah.
How do you do that?
I mean, even between us, there is.
We're already planning what we're going to do this summer, you know.
Well, what are you going to do this summer?
I can't give you specifics.
Because you won't tell me, or you don't know yet?
No, because we want to make sure that when we say something, it's finalized and that so that people don't get confused. But, like, we're planning. And
for sure.
Yeah, we're making sure that our message is heard.
Are you confident? I mean, what's the immediate agenda? Assuming Congress doesn't do what you want on the federal level. I know there's some changes you want in Massachusetts, even though we have pretty tough gun laws here. Is it a new Congress? I mean, what's quickly down the list? What's the next goal to show that this has been a success, Vikiana?
Well, the ERPO bill has a deadline. It's April 15th.
Yes.
And so we're still going to be pushing that.
This is the red flag thing? Is
yeah,
that
that's the extreme risk
protection.
So that has a deadline of April 15th. So we're trying to push that as much as possible. But
another thing that we're trying to work on is getting equitable education funding in Massachusetts, because
what kind of stuff?
So like the budget right now for education funding is incredibly out of date. So the Senate Bill 2325 works on making sure that districts are funded equitably so that students
across the board,
you know, regardless of property taxes, whatever, so that students can have access to resources, school books, textbooks.
So only have 15 seconds. So this is a broader agenda than narrowly dealing with gun violence. Not that isn't hugely important. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. We started with this ideal and this set, but there's so many places that we can branch off of in focusing on communities of color and education for all students and all youth across the board.
I can't tell you, as an observer, I cannot tell you how impressed. I know I speak for everybody at home, whether they agree with you or not. What you did was, Vikiana, it's a pleasure. Laura, great to see you again. I hope to see all of you again.
Thanks so much.
You as well.
Appreciate
Thanks, really. Congratulations on your work.